Hey y'all, I'm back. I had to take a quick little break and get a snack. I just I just finished recapping episode 3 from season 1. So now we're gonna do episode 4, which Tanya's memorial was great, but this episode I feel was fantastic. Oh man, let me take a sip. Before we get into it, you already know the housekeeping. Do I need to say it? Yeah, I need to say it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share, okay? Show your girl some love. Show your girl some love. All right, so the name of this episode, episode 4 of season 1, White Lotus, is called Recentering. Now, based on what I've talked about before in terms of like the central themes of this season, which deals with, power more or less. Who has the power, who doesn't have the power, etc. In summary. But, there's a lot of themes intertwined with that big underlying theme, which is power dynamics, power struggle, And that's what this episode is, in my opinion, based on, how I saw it, is recentering. So it's the rebalancing of that power. So, where one may have been up, the other is down. They're either meeting in the middle or switching places. Recentering however way it seems fit for that particular situation. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the first scene. So it picks up, the day after. And remember, Kai and Paula were together. So there's an opening scene with them on the beach. And, they're just talking. They look so cute together too, by the way. Beautiful, beautiful couple. And Kai is giving Paula the history of the land. So he's a local, he's from Hawaii. And he tells her about how his family, had land there, right? And it was rightfully theirs, but the government stole the lease from them. And he tells her, because she asks about the hotel, and he says, it's more or less the hotel is the one that ended up getting rights to that space. So, of course, Paula is bothered by this because, she spoke about colonialism, just kind of to throw the family off when they were asking what she had in that bag that got lost on the beach. But I'm sure these are things that run through her mind a lot because Paula, again, they have not disclosed like what her racial makeup is or what her backstory is, but she looks like she's multiracial. So of course she's going to have a position of identifying more with Kai than she does with the Mossbachers because they're waspy and they come from money. So they may not be Anglo-Saxon Protestants, but that's how you describe. If you ever just wanted to kind of like in a nutshell describe a rich white person in America, say WASP. Because they're blue-blooded, long money, privileged white Americans, and that is not Paula. So of course, with Kai telling her this story, it does not make her feel good. And he tells her that his brothers, they're trying to get a lawyer to fight back, against the government. But, the good lawyers are expensive. So, they're kind of like at a loss with that. And they actually got upset with him when he took the job at the White Lotus because it's like you're essentially working for the enemy. But, he's like, kind of like with Lonnie, Lonnie, she's at work, in her 9th month, gives birth at work because she needs the money. Same thing with Kai. He needs the money, so that's what he has to do to make a living. So again, you see that whole socioeconomic breakdown and misalignment and the class structure. It really like dives into it this episode, like how that is, there's a divide. And it's like, well, I'll get into that, but it just is very interesting because there's a discussion later in the episode amongst the Mossbachers. And, while you could feel one way, you kind of have to see it the other way too. I'll get into that when I talk about it. All right, so Paula says that she has to get back to the room, and she has to get back there before Olivia wakes up, which Kai is like, that's kind of strange. Why do you have to get back there? And he's like, isn't that your friend? Like, what's the issue? And she's like, she's kind of tricky. And he's like, well, what do you mean by that? And she says, and this answers that question, Olivia's the type of chick that, yeah, she's my friend, but she doesn't want me to have more than her. So as long as I'm below her, we're good. But if I have more than her, it's a problem. And she's going to see that we're either equal or I'm below her. So she says that their family is crazy. And, Olivia just doesn't want her to have anything of her own. Which, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, as she was saying it, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting older and I'm just moving on a different side of the coin. But because let me say this, like, off the top. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I grew up in the not better parts of Cincinnati, Ohio. I was a Section 8 baby. My mama got food stamps. I know the struggle, okay? So I just want to get that straight. But while I identify with the struggle, I'm not trapped by it. I'm not boxed in by it. So I've worked hard. I've gone to college. I had a husband. We did well. And so now I'm in a different space than what I was used to. So as you grow in life, your perspective and based on your experience, your outlook changes. So, and I'm a mother too. So I think of my daughter, God forbid, because she's a sweetheart. I don't want her to be around kids that feel like she shouldn't have what she has and then they're jealous of her. Because I understand, Paula, I get it. But it's like, if you feel this way about this family, then why are you on this trip with them? Why are you around them? That's why I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. If she's a crappy person, then why do you don't need to have her around you. There's a lot of friends you can have. There's a lot of girls you can hang out with. So it's like, do you want to not be her friend and not have that in your orbit? Or do you have a reason why you're doing it? Because Nicole says something later that was very interesting. And it brought me back to that moment when she's like telling Kai this family's crazy. And she's, describing her and Olivia's friendship dynamic. But I'm like, you're not trapped. Like, you're choosing this. So I don't know. That's just how I feel. Again, like, this is why I want you guys to comment. Because give me your insight on that. It's just, I don't like that. I don't like that. Again, I get it. Trust me. Like I said, I'm from the struggle. And I am, if you can't tell, African American. So historically, I am the product of a not so good event that happened here in the United States. But that chip on my shoulder is a lot smaller. It's not so much a chip as it is a notation now. I remind myself not to forget where I came from and to fight for the people. But again, I'm not of my struggle. So I'm not walking through life thinking that everybody should be a victim because I was a victim at one point. No. You see what I'm saying? So, anywho, let's get back to the episode. All right. So, she gets back into the bed. Like, she goes back to the room and Olivia pretends to be sleeping. She's not sleeping. So then Armand, he oversleeps, goes to the office. He oversleeps because remember he was getting tore up from the floor up at the bar, right? Gets up, has to get ready for work, goes to the spa, which is managed by Belinda. It's before 9 a.m., so it's not open yet. Belinda goes in, she hears the shower. She's like, shower's not open. The spa's not open. Who's here, more or less? And then she sees that it's Armand and Armand and her are cool, so she lets it go. And then after he gets out, which I like this. I like that they have that camaraderie and that friendship. So he gets out of the shower and he walks over to her and, you could tell he respects and trusts her because he's like, I'm just going to level with you because I could tell you're intuitive. There's really no reason for me to lie to you. I've been on a bender and, I'm 5 years sober and and I do this, I do this, I do this. I really need to stay sober, but it's hard for me because when I'm not sober, I become very uninhibited. Remember, he said that. And, Belinda, being the sweet soul she is, she tells him, she doesn't judge him. She just reminds him, yeah, it's very important and imperative that you maintain your sobriety. Stick with it. I'm here for you. I'll back you however you need it. And I thought that was a good scene. It was a really good scene because, you could tell they were really being honest with each other and raw when they have to wear that mask every day, to appease the guests. So the fact that they were able to just really level with each other, because I haven't really seen that from Armand with any of the other employees either. Like he's come from a place of, he was the person that's in control, because he's the resort manager. But with Belinda, there's like this equality with them, and I just thought that was a good scene because Armand did need to tell that to someone that I'm drowning, and look, I'm gonna get reckless if I don't have somebody hold me accountable, more or less. All right, so we get to Nicole and Mark. She asks him how he spent his day the day before, because remember, Mark was gone. He went AWOL and was getting drunk all day, and Nicole, she let him have that because she understands. And he tells her that he too went on a bender because, he's trying to cope with the news that he received about his dad. And, she seems to support him and allows for him to have his space. So there really wasn't any issue with that, which I thought that was cool too. I was like, okay, she could have been nagging him. We're on vacation. Why would you leave? And no, she just let him have his day. And then Nicole, now she goes out to the living room and she asks where Quinn is. And, Quinn, she's like, no, he didn't sleep on the beach again, did he? And she says, yeah, he did, but, she could care less. And she tells Olivia, you need to be more protective over your brother. I mean, and she's right, but it's like, damn, you didn't teach them this as they were growing up? Because these are things that should be innately, programmed into her. But, who am I? And then, Quinn, they go to Quinn. He's wakes up on the beach, staring at the water. He's at peace. He seems to really be at peace. And then as he's waking up, he spots a group of canoeists, coming up on the shore. He's looking at them. And he looks at them and he's kind of admiring them and very curious because he sees that they have this happiness. Like they look like they're in his age group, and they just look like they're living the life. They're ripped. They look beautiful, and they look happy. So, keep that in mind too, because that lends itself to the story. Now we get to Shane and Rachel. So they're at breakfast, and for some reason Rachel is, I guess, feeling defeated, and she's self-deprecating and down-talking herself. Like she tells Shane, she's like, kind of concedes to what she does. She tells Shane, yes, what I do is kind of, silly and mundane and, not as important. I'm thinking about quitting journalism and going into nonprofit. Shane agrees, and, he seems to be supportive of it. And then he says that, she doesn't have to work, but if that's what she wants to do, he could talk to his mother about, finding her some sort of nonprofit work, because that's what his mother does. And then she tells, because the Mossbachers walk by, and she's like, that family is so weird. And she's telling him about her exchange with Mark and Quinn and how it was, awkward, and he's kind of pervy. And then Tanya walks by, and then Shane's like, they can't be weirder than this one over here. So they had a cute little exchange as a couple. And she goes over to the table, Tanya, to talk to them because, again, Tanya's awkward and, has no boundaries. So she's like, oh, they're like, how are you doing after yesterday? And she's like, I had this moment where I was just thinking to myself, I kind of regretted it because, I had this intention behind releasing my mom, but then I thought, I'm releasing her into the ocean to be swallowed by the creatures, or something she says. And I felt like I was feeding her to the fishes. And I don't know if that's just something that she would have wanted. And they're just like, it's like, how do you take her? could take her, right? All right, so now we get to a scene with Paula and Olivia. So Olivia asked Paula if she's still mad at her about this guy named Trevor. So I guess there was an incident before. And Paula's telling her no. So there it is right there. So remember, Paula said that Olivia doesn't want Paula to have something she doesn't want. So I guess Olivia went after a guy that Paula was into, and that changed their relationship. I don't know. I wouldn't be friends with a girl like that. Like that happened to me in high school. And when I tell you, I became hell on wheels. This girl, like she messed with. I had a girlfriend in high school. All right, and that girl was a hoe. And this girl, I remember it had gotten around that they had messed around, and so this girl and I, we were friendly. But then after I found that out, oh, I'm bubbly. You guys see me, but I'm a Gemini. Okay, let that sit for a minute. So you get on my bad side. Oh, I made that girl's life a living hell the rest of the senior year. Like, I used to do so much passive-aggressive shit to her. Like, I used to keep my nails done, like how I have them now. And I remember one time I got them done for Pride. And she was like, oh, the girl that violated me. She's like, oh, your nails are so cute. Can I see them? And I was like, yeah. Like, I do shit like that. So, like, yeah. Like, nah, you ain't gonna be my friend after no shit like that. So, it's like, Paula, you're a masochist, girl. You don't need to be around this family. But, obviously, she needs them for some sort of reason, right? Let me get back to it, because y'all know I go on a tangent. All right, so, oh, so then, at the buffet, because that's where they are, Tanya's over there. And she asks them, she's like, hey, did you guys get your bag back? And they're like, no, why? And she's like, well, I gave it to that guy over there because there was a one of the employees. She did tell him about the bag and she handed it to him. And then they're like, really? So then, you know, they go find out what's going on. I guess they talk to the guy and they ask Armand, they're like, hey, where's our bag? You know, this dude said that he gave you the bag a couple days ago and you said it wasn't in your office. And he's like, yeah, I did. I guess he, you know, the dude's just trying to be an honest employee. He's like, yeah, maybe I know I put it in your office. Maybe it's in the lost and found. So at first Armand denied it and then he recalled after that guy brought it up. So remember, Armand's slimy, but he has his own reasons for it or whatever, which... It's like these guests in particular didn't do anything to you, but this is his way of sticking it back to the man. So, Shane and Rachel. Rachel is still telling Shane about, you know, what she's planning on doing with her career, pouring her heart out, but then he notices Armand walk back, because remember, Armand's going to go to the office and get the bag, and he starts obsessing again over the whole room thing. So he gets up, he's like, 1 second, leaves her at the table, you know, ask Armand, you know, Armand's already feeling the pressure behind the bag being asked from him. And then, you know, just now he's relapsed and now he's got Shane asking him. So Armand's like, and he's like, do you have a boss? I want to speak to your boss. And he's like, I am the resort manager. He's like, yeah, but you have a boss. I want to speak to him. Tell me who he is. And Armand's like, I'll get you a card. He's like, when are you going to get it to me? I need it now. I need you to get... And yes, Shane's being an asshole. But again, Shane has not done anything to Armand. So I'm with Shane. I'm Shane. I am Shane. I am one of them. Call me a black Karen or whatever the black equivalent is. If I pay for a service, I want my service. All right? Are y'all with me on that? I want my service. So anywho, so Armand goes to the office and, you know, he's BSing Shane with more promises or whatever. And so he goes to the office and, you know, he goes and grabs the bag. Then has this thought of, you know what? Takes all the drugs out of the bag, leaves the goodies in the drawer, takes the bag back to them empty. Let's see. Oh, now they're back at the table. Quinn is telling everyone he needs to borrow someone's phone for the day. And, Mark's like, no, you had my phone yesterday, so you're not getting my phone. Olivia says no. Paula says no. Nicole, of course, is going to say no because she needs her phone for work. And then he's like, well, you guys are going to regret it because I'm not going to have a phone. Just you watch. Throws a tantrum. And then everyone gets up from the table. Once Armand brings a bag over, Olivia and Paula get up. I forgot where Nicole went, but she just got up to go do something. So it leaves Mark and Armand. Now, remember their exchange at the bar the day before when, Mark asked him about gay sex. So Armand took that as, are you hitting on me? And Armand's flirting back with him. He's like, hi, Mr. Musbacher. Just real friendly. And now Mark feels awkward. Oh, it was funny. So now we got Belinda and Tanya. Tanya thanks Belinda for taking care of her and says that she has a very calming presence. And she's like really pouring into her and gassing her up about starting her own spa. Now, mind you, Belinda has not brought this up. Tanya has been dangling this in front of Belinda. So, Belinda is, she kind of dances around it, but she's starting to like believe it and like, buy more into it. So, Tanya's, selling her a dream as if, it's really going to happen. But we'll see what happens from that. So Belinda, she's interested, but, she still feels like, I don't know, because Tanya's kind of flaky, she gets that, but she keeps bringing it up. So it's like, okay, now you're kind of forcing me to believe it. But Belinda knows. All right. So Paula and Olivia, they're looking through the bag. Notice all the stuff's gone. She says, Nicole asked them, because Nicole's there. She's like, can you guys be more inclusive of Quinn? It's hard for guys like him, and I just don't want him to feel left out. So then Olivia is like, why? Is it because of the Asperger's? Now, clearly Quinn does have some sort of like, neurodiverse, you could tell he's neurodiverse. I'm neurodiverse. I have a history of epilepsy. So this is why I'm always moving around. So I could see it. And Nicole, she's like, no, it's not that. He doesn't have Asperger's. So she's in denial. She doesn't want to admit that her son is neurodiverse. And Olivia is like, so that's part of the issue she has with her mother. It's like, you want to see one thing and then overlook the other, which is funny because that's the same way Olivia is. But she's like, no, it's not because of that. It's because he's a white male in today's society, and they're becoming public enemy number one. Of course, Olivia and Paula don't like that. Now, this is a mom that is advocating for her son. And this is a tough one because I kind of understand all sides. Like they don't like that she is, it seems to them, fighting for the white male. Like she's fighting for the white narrative or whatever. And remember, this was in 2021. So this is fresh off of all of the social unrest, Black Lives Matter, all the injustices that were happening, George Floyd, all of this. So everyone, and this was after the pandemic. So the pandemic just revamped and woke everyone up. There was like this reawakening of just people just paying attention. And so that conversation, Nicole is defending one position and the girls are defending the other. And Nicole, she's observing that certain parties, white people are becoming the enemy. And here's my take. There's good and bad on both sides, right? And this is another reason why that chip, when you come off of the emotional response to it and really pay attention and think about the history, because think about abolitionists, early abolitionists. We had white abolitionists. We had people on our side. John Brown, okay, died fighting for us. This was a white man that he didn't have to give his life. He didn't have to, but he was so devoted to the cause and against slavery, he fought for us. So that's why I'm saying it's like, you can't take a representation from one group and then use it against the entire group. So it's like you got to look at the person and not the group. So I understand Nicole's defending, because it's like it was hard. It was like, even now, like, you can't say certain things, you can't do certain things. Like, that woke culture, it's like you're oppressing other groups. It's like you go from being one oppressed group and then you start oppressing other groups. It's like, we need to stop. And Quinn says something interesting later in the episode that pretty much summarizes what I'm thinking. So, all right, yeah, they talk about that, and Olivia and Paula, they're not with that, and they get up and walk away because they're not trying to hear Nicole. Like, you're fighting for the white male. Like, it's somebody else's time to eat at the table. Why are you fighting for them? And I'm just like, girls. Anywho. All right, so Armand's surprise for Shane was that he actually had his mother come on his honeymoon. So she is played by the infamous Molly Shannon, and she's playing the hell out of this rich white lady that is so uptight and smothering of her mother. So she shows up, she has this overbearing presence, overshadows the whole scene. Comes in, she's saying, oh, I love you, Shane, just appeasing him, and I'm so sorry about the room. Oh, this is a nice view, though, right? The way she's coming off, she's making it seem as if Rachel was the one that was unhappy, making it difficult on her son. That was what I was getting from it. And so, she's making these comments about Rachel. She's like, oh, you look like you're getting a little sun, but you still look kind of pale. Like, stuff like that. And it's like, oh my God, if I were Rachel, I'd be like, is she freaking seriously here on my honeymoon? So then she tells him, she's like, oh, I'm not going to be here the whole time. I got my own room. I just thought I'd show up, which is strange. All right, so we get to a scene with Quinn and Mark. This was a good one. So remember, Mark is on this the legacy of truth for his children. So he opens up to Quinn about, a time where he was unfaithful to Nicole. He says he cheated on her a couple times with the same woman. And he just explains to him that he just gave into his instincts, and it could happen to the best of us. That's why we have to keep ourselves in check. But I broke our trust, and I tried to really make it up to her. That's what sort of put the fracture into their relationship. Now it uncovers why they don't have sex and why there is like this like kind of wall up. You can tell with the body language or whatever. And then he tells Quinn that, he bought her $75,000 bracelets to make up for it. And so he makes sure he tells Quinn he bought it with his own money. Because remember, Nicole is the breadwinner. Because, of course, he doesn't want to leave the impression on his son that I used your mother's money to buy her own bracelets. I mean, that would be pathetic, wouldn't it? All right. So Tanya. Now, Tanya goes back to her room after leaving the spa, and she meets a gentleman named Greg. If you've been watching my season 3 recap, you know who Greg is, aka Gary. All right, so Greg is trying to get into her room, and Tanya's like, just looking at him, and he's like, oh, 594. Oh no, my room is 592. And then they just have this like, this quick little introduction to each other. And he says that he's a fisherman there on a trip, and he's a part of the BLM, and he's divorced, and he has 3 grown kids or whatever, just downloading her on everything. And she's just sitting there awkwardly taking it all in, like, oh, okay. And then he asks her about dinner. So he says, can you come with dinner with me tonight? And she's like, sure, yeah. It's at 7, right? Now, remember, at the spa, they were supposed to meet later. That was the discussion they had when Belinda kept pushing on to, not Belinda. Tanya kept pushing on to Belinda the business, not the business plan, but the business. So she calls Belinda and she tells Belinda, oh, I think I want to cancel. Belinda tells her, oh, I was getting so excited about this, I even started writing a business plan, but we can catch up on it later. Now, remember, for Tanya's memorial, her mother's memorial. Belinda was supposed to close the spa at 7, right? Well, she ends up canceling and, trying to accommodate Tanya. So it's so easy for Tanya to just cancel on her at 7 o'clock, no less, same time. So I was just like, that recentering not working so much in the favor of Belinda. Let me hurry up because I'm not even on my 3rd page. I need to get to this next one. Yeah, so but yeah, I was like, that's so messed up, Tanya. You're over here, at your beck and call, getting this woman to show up for you, and then you get a chance to show up for her, and then as soon as you meet a dude, you cancel. All right, so we get to Armand. He is in the office skiing with Special K. If you know what skiing means, with the Special K. Shane calls him to remind him of that card. You remember he was like, I need to speak to your manager. Dylan comes in and he tells him that Paula and Olivia are still looking for him. And he asked them if he asked Dylan if he knows how to make a fake card or whatever. And they come, Paula and Olivia, he goes out to the hallway and talks to them, and they're like, we need to report some stuff missing. Our medicine's missing from the bag. Armand, with his bag of tricks to make it hard for the guests, he says, well, if you make a list of everything that was in there, make an inventory, we'll report it. Who wants to do that on vacation? I know I don't. Whenever they tell you to fill out some extra paperwork, it's like that's just one more thing that just makes it more difficult for your whole customer experience. Ugh. All right, so we get to the dinner. There's a dinner scene. Quinn is on the beach, at peace with the water. Armand is checking out Dylan, very touchy-feely with Mark, walks over to the table, tells them that they're gonna have a performance from the staff who are they're all local, so they're all from Hawaii. Then we get to the Mossbacher table. Quinn points out that Armand was hitting on Mark because he's very touchy-feely, the way he's talking to him or whatever. Olivia's like, well, he's probably high on our Special K. Mind you, no one took note of high on our Special K. The parents didn't respond to that or anything. And then Quinn notices the bracelets on Nicole's wrist, and he's like, Mom, is that the $75,000 bracelets? Nicole looks at Mark like, excuse me? So she's clued in that, they've obviously had a discussion about the indiscretion. And she says it's not, polite to talk about money and how much things cost. And Mark is like trying to get Quinn to shut up. But, Quinn, if he does have Asperger's, people with Asperger's, they just say it how it is. They have no filter. They ain't got time for that. It is what it is. So then we get to Greg and Tanya at the table. Awkward. Tanya tells Greg, I think we should start talking now before the performance starts because it's going to get really loud. And then Greg's like, okay, so let's start talking. No talking starts. The music starts. So then we get back to the Mossbacher's table. And this is when we get into this recentering conversation. It's very interesting. So, I believe it was, yes, Olivia made a comment to Nicole. She says, Mom, I looked around and all the white males, everybody seems to be intact with their privilege or whatever. So she's super cynical. And then Nicole is like, oh, whatever. And Mark's like, let's not get all into this or whatever. Like, let's just, try to enjoy ourselves and yada, yada, yada. And then somehow Paula mentions, in response to Olivia mentioning the whole white male privilege. And, Nicole is like, well, why do you keep focusing on this and harping on this? Like, it's not a good time for white males. That's all I'm saying. They're going against the grain of a lot. You know, society's against them. And yes, I mean, that it has been for them, you know, for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's just how it's been, right? And so Paula says maybe it's time for other people to eat at the table. And that's what it is. And maybe there's some recentering going on that's required. So then Mark's like, well, let's recenter the conversation around Paula. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, what do you want to talk about? And then Paula's like, well, what do you stand for, Mark? Mark, of course, is stumped and doesn't know how to answer that. So then it goes to Shane and Rachel and the mom at the table. And, you know, Rachel, they're talking about her plan and what she wants to do. And at first, they're all for it. But the fundraising and the nonprofit aspect that Rachel was saying she wanted to do, meaning I want to get a job, I want to be boots on the ground, I want to be in the weeds. Shane's mom's like, no. Why would you want to do that? You have money now. All that is nonprofit is fundraising. And the position you have is not working. You throw the parties. You raise the money. You bring the people in to make the donations. And believe me, that's a job in itself. That's the extent of what you need to do. What you're talking about, that's menial work. Working in a nonprofit for what? That you have the money. It's all about the money. And I mean, cruel world, but Shane's mom is not wrong. You know, if you are the one that comes from the money, I mean, in nonprofit, that's what it is. I worked for a nonprofit. And that is part of the reason I got out of it, because I saw the red tape, I saw the funding restrictions, and I saw, you know, when it comes down to it, yes, we want to do well, because that's the intention for nonprofits. They're usually established to make some sort of difference in the world. But when it comes down to money, that red tape comes in mind. You can't always save everybody, right? And it just starts to wrestle with you morally. So that's part of the reason I went into corporate America, because I was like, well, shit, at least in corporate America, we all know, you know, who's coming after each other and what to expect. But all this honky-dory nonprofit spirit, and then you find out it's not what you think it is. It really does come down to it being about the money. It is what it is. That's why we have our gods, right? To keep us balanced, because you learn that this world is going to hell in a handbasket. So anyhow, so we go back to Greg and Tanya. So Tanya's asking Greg, how did he get into BLM? Like, what drew him to that? And he's kind of like downloading her. And then she's like, so was there some sort of event that drew you to activism? Like, was there some sort of like, you know, reason that pushed you to go so on such an aggressive route? You know, because Greg is white. And he's like, what do you mean activism? She's like, well, Black Lives Matter. And he's like, no, not Black Lives Matter BLM. Bureau of Labor Management BLM. I have 300 rangers that report to me. Oh no, Bureau of Land Management. I have 300 rangers that report to me. And she's like, oh. So then we go back to the Mossbachers table, and this is when the discussion gets a little bit more in depth, which I was like, ooh. So Mark says that as creatures, because remember, he's on this whole we're all monkey thing, we all have tribal mindsets, and it's all about, you know, taking over who's the next person to be in charge. So then Nicole says that, you know, these same people that protest about, you know, these systems, they don't want to dismantle the systems. They just want better seats at the table. She's not lying. And then she asked Olivia, because, you know, they asked Mark, what does he stand for? She's like, so what do you stand for, Olivia? Not capitalism, not socialism. What, cynicism? Yeah, because it's like you just talking. We could all passively protest, right? And just be talking stuff, but it's like, what do you really stand for? Like, what are you really doing? And then Quinn, this is where Quinn was like, to me, it was a mic drop. He says, let's just all cut the shit. We're all parasites. We're all doing the same shit, just in different ways. And we're all destroying the fucking world for the animals that depend on us. We're taking from them, if you really want to get down to it. And I was like, Funny, right? It's just that age-old dilemma. Like somebody's always gonna have something to say. It's never gonna be fair. Everybody has to go through their periods where they're just having to adjust to what life is. And yeah, it's like I said, I've been on the other side. I have. And I'm not like filthy rich or anything. I'm just appreciative that I am more blessed than I used to be. But I just find that as I evolve, I don't sit in the muck of that mindset. You see what I'm saying? Because you will find yourself, and I've seen this, being so critical of the world that you're not enjoying your life, right? Remember, don't forget, but don't like sit in it and like let it be the driver of your narrative, your day-to-day narrative. That's all I'm saying, and then don't start oppressing other groups because you feel like your group was oppressed. So then Paula starts to get annoyed because she's getting worked up, by the discussion. She gets up, she leaves. Olivia notices, and it's like, all right, what's up with that? So then Tanya and Greg walks Tanya to her room. He goes in for a modest kiss. They kiss real modestly. Tanya, I guess she likes Greg. So this is me. If I like you and we've already gone there, we've been drinking. Tanya pulls Greg in, is like, fuck that, and just kisses him. Pulls Greg in the room. She's like, you want a nightcap? He's like, I would love that. They go in the room and you already know what went down. All right, so Dylan and Armand. So they're in the room. Well, they're in Armand's office. And Armand apologizes to Dylan for, making the moves on him the day before. And he downloads him. He says, I'm on this sobriety journey. I've been 5 years and I kind of went on a bender. And what happens, as he said to Belinda, is I become very uninhibited. And then he tells him, he's like, I'm feeling real uninhibited right now. And of course, Dylan's like, oh, okay. Then he tells him, he's like, and I'm obsessed with you and I want to get you naked. What do I have to do to get you naked? I'll give you anything you want. You'll have any shift you want. You'll basically be able to do whatever you want if I get you naked. What do I need to do that? Then it cuts to Olivia with her hoe ass. Guess who she starts talking to? Kai. So she's making the moves on Kai. Exactly what Paula said. When I got something, she wants it. So we got Rachel and Shane. They're back at the room. Rachel is pissed and she's telling Shane about, how his mother made her feel. And, she feels like his mother doesn't like her, which we know. And I hate when, like, because I joke that I'm the daughter-in-law from hell. And hear me out. Hear me out. It's not that I, like, purposely try to, like, fuck with the mom. But I always pick up on those vibes. It's because some mothers, and the dudes I've been with, apparently, their mothers either are trying to be protective, trying to hold on to their son, or they're jealous of some sort. Like, just recently, my ex, his mother was jealous of me because I was different from, I guess, how she was as a woman. So we're both black. My 2 previous mother-in-laws, they were white. So those were a whole different set of situations, right? But my, this one, she was a black woman who, dare I say, there's all types of different black people, okay? Judging by how you see me, you see me another way. But in comparison to her, I'm very bubbly. Because even when she came to visit us, she's like, you wake up happy every day. I was like, because I do try to be happy. Because I was like real bubbly in the morning. And, I was like big on like, talking about eating healthy. And like I would push back on her because she liked to eat sugar. So you get the point, right? So I basically was a different type of woman for her son. And she saw that. And like her son bought me this Pandora bracelet, right? I remember he mentioned to her, he bought it, I guess, for me. And he kind of told me that she was kind of jealous of me having this bracelet. So it's like, I'm that girl. Like, I'm not about to sit here and kiss your ass type of woman. Like, I will put up a boundary if I have to, because, So, like, we pick up on, like, stuff. So the fact that Shane is, like, trying to downplay what she's picking up from the mom, like, that frustrates me. It's like, there's nothing I can stand more than a man that cannot set a fucking boundary with his mother and be real about it. Like, be real. Like, just be a man, but it's hard for men to do that. So most men. Not all men, but most men. They do not know how to set those healthy boundaries with their mother. So, she's like, well, she just showed up on our honeymoon, and my mother would never do that. Now, this is where Shane said that I didn't like. He's like, I know she wouldn't. She's like, well, what is that supposed to mean? He's like, well, because she couldn't afford to get a ticket to come out here. And I thought that was kind of fucked up. I'm like, damn, Shane. So, she's like, this is, she's starting to, again, have that buyer's remorse, because she's like, this little pompous asshole. So Shane, of course, is still obsessing, because as they're talking, he's calling the number that Armand gave him, and it's a bogus number. So he's getting worked up. So, he goes down to the desk, asks Belinda, where is, Armand? And, she says that she thinks he left for the evening, and Shane's not buying that. Cuts to a scene really quick where, Paula and Olivia are in bed. And then Paula turns around to face Olivia. Olivia asks her why she left. And then Paula says that to see those locals dancing for white people that stole their land, it just made her feel depressed. Because remember the conversation that her and Kai were having at the top of the episode. So, Paula's really getting into her feelings, feeling that imbalance of power. And then Olivia apologizes to her for her family. This was so fake. She's like, I'm so sorry for my family. And then she's like, you're my friend, and I love you, type of thing. But then she says that, like, looking up, like they're in the bed. She's looking up and Paula's facing her. So it's almost like, no, we're not buying that. So Belinda is printing her business plan all happily. And Shane is demanding that he sees Armand. So, she's like, all right, because, Belinda is go along, get along. She's a good worker. So, they're all about taking care of the customers, the clients or whatever. So she obliges Shane. They walk over to Armand's office, and, there's a knock, no answer. She says, I guess he left. Shane's like, no, I hear somebody in there, because Shane's pissed at this point. So then, Belinda opens the door, which it wasn't lost on me that, I know I said I wasn't going to mention season 3, but there's a scene in season 3 where this same exact thing happens to Belinda. Her door was just opened. So, she opens the door, and, Dylan is bent over the desk, and Armand is face deep in groceries. Face deep in groceries, okay? My kind of party. I heard that that's a fun thing. And, Belinda is shocked, and Shane is like laughing. Like, he's like, oh, this is epic. Because, again, there's that recentering. So Shane has felt like he's been getting gaslit and lost his power. Now he has gained his power back, because he has now found Armand in a compromising position. And now Armand is about to become his bitch. And then it ends with Shane walking away, with his newfound power back. And it cuts out. So Shane, that scene that I said that Mr. Dylan was in, he had he wasn't like a big part, but you know, he had a memorable role. That was the role. I'll never forget that actor too. I think it's Lucas Cage, I think his name is. I'll never forget when I watched Watch What Happens Live and Andy Cohen was interviewing him, and I think because Andy, I think Andy was turned on by that scene because he seemed like he was flirting with that young actor. Because it's like, I've seen you in a homo erotic, you know, scene or whatever, so I'm drawn to it type of thing. There was big buzz around that scene, so you know, if you want to see what's going on, you know, look it up. I don't know if they have it on YouTube, but you know, you might have to go to Max and watch that. But that was something. Anyway, that was the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. It ran over, you know, the 50 minutes, but that's not too bad. It's still under an hour. I try to do these things under an hour. I don't want them to be longer than the episode themselves. So with that being said, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Engage with me. We kind of went everywhere with some topics. So I'm sure, you know, if you watch this, you might want to comment on something I've said, you know. I'm open. I'm not gonna, you know, just keep it cute. Don't be disrespectful or whatever, you know. And if you decide to be disrespectful, we'll cross that road when we get there, all right? All right, on that note, I'm going to leave you. Thank you so much for your support. This is Mrs. D. Green. Peace and blessings, all right? Bye.